What is up, gamers? This video will be going over the standard tier list after set 7 comes out. Set 7 gives support to Youthbook, Java, Eugene, Magnolia, Leonorn, and Bayo Magnus. And then we get fully introduced to Drajuld finally, and Welstra comes out. Going into the tier list, here is all of the decks. In tier 1, it's Youthbook and Overlord. In 1.5, it's Yo, Kyrie, Bruce, Ava, Flagberg, Gravidia, Prison, Mahar, and Michu. In tier 2, it's Drajuld, Bafsagra, Java, Bastion, Bagrea, Hexaorb, Bayo Magnus, Lutetia, and Grade 4 Bruce. And then in tier 2.5, it's Orphis, Eugene, Magnolia, Fortia, Greedon, and Leonorn. So going into the first deck, Youthbook. Youthbook becomes the best deck in the format because of the introduction to Revolt Form Tempest. So what Tempest does is whenever he's placed from a Revolt Dress ability, you can Counterblast 1, reveal the top 2 cards of your deck, and then put one of your opponent's rear guards with one of the same grades as the cards revealed to the bottom of the deck. Then add those cards to your hand, and your front row has plus 5k during that turn. Tempest gives Youthbook what it desperately needed, which was a way to actually generate advantage, because on release, Youthbook was mostly just discarding and filtering a bunch of cards and using Cadwalla and Painkiller to create aggressive plays while also keeping your hand intact. So the deck had no issues finding the pieces it needed. It just had an issue with keeping a hand size healthy. So Tempest being a really good Revolt form you can always go into, it helps the deck a lot. Youthbook also got Sequana, which is a new grade 1. So whenever you Revolt Dress into a new grade 3, then Sequana can retire itself and give your Vanguard a drive. This gives all the Revolt forms a drive check when they would normally not have any. And then Gust can have twin drive if you do Sequana first and then Gust, since Sequana sets the drive checks to 1. So you're able to convert your field into extra drive checks instead of just draws, which is a lot better on being able to create pressure and trying to push the game. And because of Schneisel, getting all these Revolt forms in your hand is really easy, and Schneisel also gives a big power boost to your turn. And the last card that Youthbook got that is really good is Wayward Therapy Angel. So it's a grade 1 with base 10k power, but you can't ride or normal call it. You can only call it if you discard it from your hand, and then you can Soul Blast 1 and call it. Due to all the effects that have discarding as a cost, and then also from riding up, you have to discard a card, Therapy Angel becomes very consistent at being able to hit the field as a 10k booster or attacker. So if you have it as a booster, then let's say it boosts Youthbook. Youthbook would be base 13, and then it'd have a 10k boost for 23. So the opponent would have to guard with 25 to make it 2 to pass. And then it can also act as an attacker by being a 10k attacker with an 8k booster behind it. So you're hitting 18. With Tempest power up, it can go to 23. So Wayward Therapy Angel just makes numbers hit cleanly, and getting that extra power boost helps out a lot on being able to play aggressively early on, and then also make your numbers matter a lot more than before. Here's a sample deck list for Youthbook. Youthbook is going to be the best deck going into next format. I believe there is another deck that is also really good, and that is Overlord. So if you don't know, there's a promo called Drag Ritter Halb, and Japan's had it for a while, but we haven't gotten it yet. But when set 7 releases, we're going to get a promo pack with Halb in it, which is going to be really good. So Halb has the effect that if your Vanguard is an Overlord and you discard it for an effect, it can count as 2 discard. And then whenever it's also discarded during your turn, you can call it to an open rearguard circle, and it gets plus 5k for the turn. So why is this good? The main issue Overlord has had is that it doesn't really plus, because how the end works, you attack, and then you twin drive, and then you discard 2 and restand, and then swing again with another twin drive. Overlord never actually plussed during your turn. It mostly just pressured the opponent and made them have to guard a lot more often on big Vanguard swings, and then you utilize your rearguard guards as a way to retire their rear guards, and that's how you generate advantage. But with the existence of Dragwood or Halb, now Overlord hits even bigger numbers, and it actually starts plussing off of its discard effect, because Halb counts as 2 discards. So you just discard Halb and then you call it, and then it is a 13k booster, and Overlord generates you an extra card in your hand at the end. So that's why Halb is really good, and you utilize other cards that help hit bigger numbers, like Nahalem being able to give itself and your Vanguard +5, Burning Horn giving itself +5 every time you attack, and then the End himself giving himself +5, and then also Personified Power. Because of Halb being able to consistently give Overlord a way to plus during its turn, and then also have a big booster, the deck just hits like a truck, and the Vanguard swings are very threatening. Some people might be confused on why Brachial Force is ran in a lot of builds, and it's mostly because it's an on-hit effect on anywhere. It doesn't have to hit Vanguard, it can hit rear guards also. So you pressure the field by having Brachial Force attack a rear guard, and then threaten the on-hit to retire another thing, and then Brachial Force clears itself and you can draw off it. So Brachial Force basically forces the opponent to have to lose cards anyway, and then that's less cards for them to be able to guard with against your Vanguard. Here is a sample list for the deck. This is very, very basic. You max out on the Ends, Nahalem's, Brachial Forces, Burning Horns, and Halbs, and then you max out on crits and OT. The win condition of this deck is to just sack your opponent super hard with crits and OT, and if you hit OT, you should just win the game, because Overlord is going to be able to attack 3 times that turn, and then Burning Horn is going to get an extra 5k power off of it. So just having Drag Veda in there just makes the ceiling of this deck even higher, since you're drive checking so much throughout. Next is the other big deck in this set, which is Drajuld. The new Drajuld is Act Counter Blast 1 once per turn, Soul Charge 2, and if the cards you Soul Charged are different grades, you draw a card. Very good skill. And then he has the same on attack effect as Child Deck Drajuld. So on attack, you Soul Blast 4 cards with different grades, and then your opponent gets set to 1 power. And if they're grade 3 or greater, then Drajuld gains a crit also. Very strong card in a vacuum, because it can help set itself up and be able to dig through your deck a bit deeper. And it also sets the opponent to 1 and has crit pressure. It setting the opponent to 1 can mitigate trigger effects if you do it later in the turn. And it makes all your other attacks even stronger, even if they're not like the biggest in the world. They basically get plus 10k. And the deck has access to some really cool cards. So Rock Augur gets plus 10k whenever it attacks and your Vanguard has done its skill this turn. It's a base 20k, and it has the plus 10k for turn, not just for battle. And then whenever your Vanguard uses its skill, you can Counter Blast 1 and restand him. So Drajuld has multi-attack within it, and the attacker is base 20k. So it makes the opponent have to guard with 20k shield if they're at 1 to be able to guard this. So it makes it very awkward on being able to handle it. They basically have to drop 2 or more cards to block the attack most of the time, unless if they use a PG. There's also Ristal Gala, which gives the deck access to spot removal, while also being able to filter your soul to set up for the next turn on being able to use Drajuld's skill again. This deck has a very solid early game also because of its ride line. So Jewel Core can call itself out whenever you ride on top of it with the grade 2. And then it's a 13k attacker or booster. And then at the end of the battle, it'll go back into Soul. And then Jewel Neil just gives an on-hit Soul Charge, which helps set up your Drajuld later on. When Ridden Upon effect is basically like Randor in Yuji, where you put a card in the Soul and draw a card, just with a bit more conditions. The ride line's really good. And then the last card I want to talk about is Falcate. So whenever it boosts, you can put a unit in your drop zone that has a different grade than any cards in your Soul, and then put in the Soul. So Falcate makes Drajuld way more consistent, because a lot of the times before Falcate, with how Drajuld would play out, is you'd have enough after your initial ride line to be able to get to the Soul Blast 4 effect, but then afterwards it becomes quite challenging to be able to consistently hit that again. So you'd have to build your deck in a weird way. But with Falcate, basically get access to the grades you need in your drop zone that you've already used, and can filter in the cards you're missing. So if you need a grade 2, then whenever you boost with Falcate on the Drajuld swing, you can do Falcate skill, put a grade 2 in the Soul, and then you're able to do Drajuld skill and Soul Blast 4 and then minus power. Here is a sample list for Drajuld. The main reason why Dredjeweled is in tier 2 is it's a deck where if it falls behind, it becomes kind of hard to be able to come back into the game. It doesn't have a lot of self-recovery compared to other decks and a way to generate advantage. So the way to play the deck is to be aggressive with it, usually try to close out the game as soon as possible. Next up is Magnolia. So Magnolia's in tier 2.5 because I'm not fully convinced that the new support takes it up to a hyper-competitive level, but it does help out a lot. The main card to look at for specifically grade 3 Magnolia is the new Sylvanhorn Beast Serol. So when Serol is placed on rearguard from deck or hand, if your Vanguard's a Sylvanhorn Beast, you can Soul Blast 1, check top 5, and add a Magnolia to your hand. And then continuous rearguard, if you have a grade 3 Vanguard with Magnolia in this card name, your Persona Ride affects your back row as well. So it basically turns Persona Ride turns already from decently strong to insanely strong. You get an extra 30k free power just from having this guy in play. And then it also helps you search for more Magnolias, so it makes the deck way more consistent and able to hit the Magnolia power spike easier. The other new card is Alpin. Alpin has the skill that if it's on rearguard and it attacks a Vanguard, if your Vanguard's a Magnolia, then it gets plus 5k until end of battle for every 2 of your grade 2 or greater units. And then if it gained 10k or more power from it, then you can bind it, countercharge, and soul charge at the end of the battle. This gives Magnolia much needed resource management because the deck lacked a way to easily countercharge other than using Prize Trident during your Persona Ride turn. And then the deck also didn't have an easy way to soul charge other than just using Inlet Pulse. And the deck uses quite a bit of both resources. So having Alpin be able to be a big beater and then also remove itself from the field to be able to give yourself resources back is really handy. Because you're on grade 3 Magnolia, you gain access again to Danny Maru and Wild Intelligence. The deck has a way bigger payoff to be able to use all of these effects consistently, and the amount of late game pressure you put onto the opponent is very big because you still have access to Gianosla. So if you hit a trigger during your big combo turn, then if you have multiple Gianoslas out, then you can start passing around a bunch of power from it. So naturally it'll be base 25k because of the extra Persona Ride power from Serol, and then you'll pass it, let's say, to another Gianosla, so then it'll be 50k, and then you'll pass 50k to something else. So just the amount of power and pressure this deck can put on now is a lot higher. I'm just not fully convinced it has enough going for it to be able to compete at top tables, but it's definitely not a joke anymore. Next is the other Stoicheia deck that got support in this set, which is Flagberg. So Flagberg was already very strong. In English, we just got the promo, which gives the deck access to extra good restanders and a 6th attack. So what this new set did is give us another restander. It doesn't use counter. This is the new grade 2. So at the end of the battle that it attacked the Vanguard, if it was the second battle of this turn, and your Vanguard is a stud Flagberg, you can Soul Blast 1 and stand this unit, and it gets plus 5k until end of turn. This power creeps Ascendance Assault, because Ascendance Assault needed the Counterblast, which this deck ate up Counterblast really harshly. So having access to a new restander that Soul Blasts instead is very good for the deck, and you have access to extra Counterblast that you wouldn't have before. And it also gives itself power, so it can swing 10 then 15. And because of the extra Counterblast you get from it, you're able to start running Diantha in the deck, which came out in set 6. Whenever you call it, you can Counterblast 1 and revive a grade 3 from your draw. And it's also a 13k beater whenever you have 2 more grade 1s in play. So Diantha allows you to basically run even more revival effects. So you aren't restricted to just 1 revive from your orders. Now you can revive a second time with Diantha, and it's also a unit itself. So you'll have 2 units in play off of it, and that'll just help keep the consistency of the deck going. So here is a sample list. You basically just get to take out Ascendance Assault and put in the new restander. Then you make room for Diantha with whatever extra spots you have. Next up is Eugene. So Eugene finally got quite a bit of support in a set, and he finally got his 4th attack outside of cheating out Esperadea. Introducing Oswald. So Oswald has the skill of, at the end of the battle, that it boosts a Eugene Vanguard. If your opponent has no rear guards in play, you can Counter Blast 1, discard 1, and then restand your Vanguard and reduce or increase its crit and drive to 1. So you can't swing twice with double crit on the Eugene swing, and then you get to attack with your Vanguard again. So you get to keep all your extra power, but you lose any extra crits you would have given Eugene. And then you also go down to 1 drive, and since part of the cost is discarding the card, you don't actually plus throughout the turn. But that was fine because usually Eugene is a very big swing. Having Eugene be able to attack twice is a very positive note for the deck. And then Eugene also gets access to the new triple grab Meteor Flare Dragon. Whenever it's placed on rear guard, all of your opponent's continuous effects are turned off for the turn, and then you can Counter Blast 1 and retire something in the same column as him, and then he's a 20k beta also. So this lets Eugene finally be able to clear a field consistently. Even if the opponent has effects that prevent that unit from being retired, then Meteor Flare can still get around that. Because of that, Eugene is very consistently able to get a field clear and be able to use Oswald consistently in just about every matchup. Now, we still run Best Harvest in here because that's like Eugene's power play, is being able to call a bunch of things down that have on play retire something, and then refill your hand in the process, while negging the opponent a bunch. The other cool card this deck gets access to is Stealth Fiend Silent Crow. Whenever it's placed from an ability, it gets plus 5k, and then once per turn, when something in the same column as it is retired from the opponent's field, then you can Counter Blast 1 and draw a card. So this can just be a 13k body while also being able to replace itself. And if you're able to call it off Eugene's skill, then it's a 13k beta. And then you'll be able to plus off of it by being able to retire other things, and then Silent Crow giving you an extra card. So that's all the new things Eugene got. There is a promo that did come out in Japan whenever set 7 came out, but we won't get it till set 8 comes out, and that one is pretty good. You can bind it and then put 2 normal units from your drop zone into your soul, but if your opponent has no rear guards, then you can put them on the top of your deck instead. A very cool play with this is putting Esperdeas back on top of your deck and then having Eugene be able to grab them and then call them out. And it helps prevent Eugene from decking out because through all the draw skills from Best Harvest, Dustin, and Travis, and then Eugene's second skill of being able to just dig through your deck for other pieces, having that promo is going to help prevent this deck from decking out and be able to consistently get the pieces at once. But for now, here is a list without it. It basically plays the same as before, except now Eugene is able to restand and Meteor Flare is able to break through resist effects. And the last deck I want to talk about is the new crossover dress support. So the deck has a new toy with Bar of Irina. It's a grade 3 with crossover dress, and then if it's in the crossover dress state, you can Soul Blast 2 and retire a rear guard, and it's not once per turn, so you can keep popping rear guards if you have the soul for it. And then his second skill is, while he's in the crossover dress state, whenever he attacks, he gets plus 2k for the battle for each open rear guard your opponent has. And then if they have 1 or less rear guards in play, you can Counter Blast 1, and it's able to perform a single drive check during that battle. So this doesn't really upgrade the crossover dress deck. It's more so a different take on it. So if the meta right now is a lot of decks that can clear the field, then this becomes stronger. And its second skill is not once per turn, so you can restand it off Java and then be able to get another drive check off of it, so you're able to plus off it while being able to clear the opponent's field also. So the new prayer dragons that help with this is Embargo. Whenever it becomes an original dress, you can Counter Blast 1, Soul Charge 1, and then retire an opponent's rear guard. And then Gaudy Guard, where whenever it becomes an original dress, if you have no soul, you can Soul Charge 2. This build has a lot of extra ways to be able to build souls, then you can consistently get to multiple retires off Bar of Irina. And the deck also still plays Braum of Irina, since it can blow up a column for just 1 soul. There are a ton of ways that you can build this deck. Here's a list I saw online, and I thought it was very interesting and cool to share. So here's a list completely based around Bar of Irina. You run the old Toga Chigarashi and Gaudy Guard as way to build up your soul. And then you have multiple Barv arenas. It and Java are the only ways you can Counterblast in the deck. So if your opponent has a clear field, then these Barv arenas are going to swing 23 by themselves, while also performing drive checks in the process, so you're able to build a bigger hand off of it. And you can consistently have some soul to be able to pop rear guards because of Gaudy Guard refilling your soul, and then Toga Chigarashi being able to go to soul. So you can discard it off of either Java effect or from riding. And then the deck will still run Gallandite because it needs to hit high enough numbers early on to be able to pressure the opponent into not enjoying a Barv Arena turn. And because of all the drive checks we're doing, the deck runs a bunch of crits, and also you have a higher chance to hit your OT in this build. And that is about it. Thank you all for watching. I'm going to try to upload a bit more consistently than once every 2 to 3 months. There are quite a few videos I want to do. And yeah, I'll see you all next time.